I'd now like to introduce our third speaker, and that's Matt Tomlinson, who is our Leeds Campus Dean. Matt also spoke recently at our LGBTQ plus event back in February, so it's great to welcome Matt back again. And Matt will be discussing the way in which businesses can successfully implement positive change for gender diversity and inclusion. So I'd like to welcome Matt.
Hi, Patrick. Thanks. I'm hoping everyone can hear me okay. So good evening, everyone. My name's Matt Tomlinson, and I'm the Dean of our Leeds and Sheffield campuses. And I'm really delighted to be part of this event this evening and to be able to talk to you about gender diversity, which is something that I am particularly passionate about. And I'll come on to tell you a bit more about why that is shortly. So this week, I suppose, is particularly appropriate week to be talking on this topic, given that Monday saw women and girls celebrated around the world for International Women's Day. Women's role in society and their representation in industry varies radically, especially between different countries across the globe. But if we look at where we are in the UK and where we sit compared to developed nations, and particularly, I think, our Scandinavian friends, it's fair to say we've got a good way still to go. Now, one of the biggest obstacles to gender equality has been women's choice to start families, and gender stereotyping, inflexible work practices, poor childcare provision, in addition to social expectation regarding gender roles, have continuously contributed to women having to choose effectively whether to start a family. And the impact of that then having, I suppose, the effect of their careers stagnating, or worse, women leaving their careers altogether. And my talk this evening really focuses on the relationship between, I suppose, family life and gender diversity, and why this is an issue that concerns both men and women, and what can be done to drive continued improvement in this field. So, if we look at the legal profession, which obviously is very, very relevant to obviously where I am sat and where I've come from, and many of you listening this evening, according to a diversity study that was conducted by the SRA in 2019, the profession is almost equally represented with 49% female lawyers. However, if you drill down into this a little bit further and you look at female representation at partner level, this drops to 34% on average, and it drops to 29% when you specifically look at big firms with over 50 partners. What's not reported is how many of those women in senior roles in law have a family. Now, if we conducted such a survey, it almost certainly revealed that many of those women making top rank positions in firms have made a choice to pursue a career at the cost of having a family. And in 2021, is it really a choice of either or can firms and companies adopt meaningful measures that make it possible to pursue a career and to be a parent? So where I come from in relation to this is as follows. I'm a qualified lawyer by background, and prior to moving into education, I trained and practiced as a corporate lawyer with a number of big firms. And the lack of female representation in law at a senior level then was something that I was very aware of. And when I reflect back, women dropping out to have children was something that I saw time and time again. However, as the old saying goes, you can't truly understand another situation until you walk a mile in their shoes. And this is where I suppose my kind of personal experience gave me some further insight into this. So in 2013, I was working in an international corporate firm, and my partner and I were starting to have a look at beginning a family. Now, we're in a same-sex relationship, and both of us at that time worked for international firms. And that opened up a conversation at home about the practicality of us both being able to continue our roles and have a child. And this was because it probably felt almost impossible to meet the demands of the jobs that we were doing and the demands of looking after a child simultaneously. And, you know, practicalities such as, you know, the latest nursery pickup would be 6 p.m. and at that time, you know, neither of us would have ever left work by 6 p.m. The, I suppose, additional kind of issue was the idea of even going and requesting parental leave from our employer, or taking some time out and coming back to work and requesting a defined finishing time, so that we could obviously go and meet the demands at home. So if I think back to that time, and to give you some context of what that kind of culture looked like in the firms that we're talking about, working from home was by exception only. You'd have to have got like partner approval to have even been considered for this exceptional situation where you might be able to work from home. So as the primary carer for our future child, I made the decision to leave, and I continued my career in a different industry, which brought me into education. And education, I suppose, was an industry that I identified I'd be able to continue my career in and meet the demands of having a family as well. But what became very apparent to me was the choice that I was making was a choice that many talented and brilliant women lawyers before me had made, many more alongside me were making, and many more that would follow me would continue to make. And the challenge for most was that the legal industry was just this traditional brick with predominantly male leadership, and the ideal of the successful lawyer was one who demonstrated total commitment to their clients by working long hours and being available for them round the clock. And the concept of flexible working or time out, therefore, was completely against the grain of all things that culture promoted. And the result of this meant that women that did have a family and did return to work after their maternity, requested part-time hours or flexibility in finish time, were often being sidelined or made to feel that their contribution was somehow inferior or compromised or limited. And the bigger commercial firms were actually the worst for this. It was almost a bit of a kind of head scratcher, when they had a woman come back from maternity leave and were faced with how do you accommodate somebody on part-time working hours, or someone that's got to leave at 4 to go and get their kids. I mean, how do they effectively contribute to that big deal or a piece of protracted litigation? Now, I did leave and I came into education. I'm the primary carer for 2 children, and since joining ULaw in 2013 as a tutor, I've held numerous managerial roles before I became dean in 2018. And I'm one of the youngest deans ever to have been appointed. And this has, without question, been made possible by the ULaw culture. And I think there's an awful lot that others can take from it. From my perspective, the key to gender equality is the culture an institution promotes. A culture that encourages individuals to thrive based on their talent and affords them the support and flexibility to accommodate others, other aspects of their life rather, alongside their work. And that in itself will see a far better return from people and institutions people, and it will attract and retain the best talent. However, this has to be an investment that firms and businesses make for the long term. The individual that you recruit and perceive to be the top talent today is likely to have periods of their career where their personal commitments will change, and the way in which they work needs to adapt if they're going to continue their role. The reality is that those commitments won't last forever, and working in a different way does not mean that the value that an individual brings is worth any less than they did before. And in fact, by accommodating individuals, it is often found that their quality and output's been improved. Moreover, law firm clients are people with the same personal demands as their advisors, and they should be understanding of this too. And let's face it, if you want the best lawyer, that lawyer might be a mum, and she might have to deliver that advice between 10 and 4. If you don't want the best lawyer, you might have you work with somebody who's working different hours. But you might have noticed I've stopped referring to women and family as the point of my point of reference here, and it's intentional. The definition of gender has shifted significantly over the past decade. Social expectations of gender have evolved, and importantly, the male role in childcare has changed, and there are more and more men who are taking on primary care responsibilities for children. And whilst this, of course, enables more women to pursue their careers, it is shifting the issue rather than creating a solution. The common point of focus, therefore, for men and women needs to be an expectation that employers provide a robust infrastructure and a culture that works with individual employees to ensure that there is no attrition of talent of either gender because of family responsibilities that stand as an obstacle. So the past 12 months has been pretty surreal in many ways, but it has revolutionised the way in which many of us are working, and so many lessons have been learned from this. Companies are reporting increased productivity, employees report being happier and healthier, and those with families have enjoyed extra time that they've been able to spend with their partners and children. So COVID should therefore be the accelerator to widespread progress in the area of gender diversity. The legal industry in particular has perhaps had to change its working practices to accommodate COVID more than most. The idea that you had to be present at your desk and that FaceTime was the metric of your commitment has been somewhat turned on its head. And flexible working and the future working model is on the agenda of almost all firms now and businesses. And there are clear benefits that this brings to a firm. Cost saving on expensive city rent is one that I hear all the time, but in my opinion, the focus of these new learnings should be on attracting and promoting a diverse workforce. Remote working is a clearly advantageous thing in many ways, especially for working parents, but there are also clear risks with it too, and those being things like an expectation that you're always contactable or you can work even longer hours. And where a diversity focus is maintained, it should be supported with policies that protect against the risks that I've just articulated, and a culture should be developed which invites discussion from its people where there is point for improvement. So before I finish, and because my audience here today are mostly aspiring lawyers, I wanted to really talk about things that you might want to look out for when you're starting your legal career. There's been such a lot of progress made in the legal industry in the past decade, and the benefits of gender diversity in the law are now clearly acknowledged. And you should therefore be entering this profession with, ambition and determination to take your career as far as you desire. Firms that really are committed to gender diversity will address this explicitly in their recruitment, and job adverts historically, and many still do unfortunately, focus solely on the job specification and commonly use language which really make it quite hard, I think, to kind of identify yourself being able to succeed in that role if you are indeed a mother who's had time out with children. Things like able to meet the demands of servicing FTSE 350 clients, or must be able to demonstrate exceptional commitment to developing client relationships, and that translates as it's a role suitable for somebody that's completely focused on a job with no distraction. Firms that genuinely are committed to attracting diverse talent pools will explicitly state that they are, and language which talks about we encourage applicants from diverse backgrounds and we'll work flexibly with the right individuals is all demonstrative of a firm's commitment to actually attracting those people in the first instance, and obviously then working with them throughout their career. Secondly, firms that are committed to gender diversity will publish their data on the site, on their websites, and of course they're going to articulate all the wonderful things that they're doing to promote it as well. And there'll likely be case studies of employees, and I think where they are personal and honest, you're going to get a genuine impression of a firm's commitment to this. In terms of diversity schemes that are deployed by firms, I'm a huge champion of mentorship programs, and I think where these schemes are run correctly, they can be hugely effective at supporting individuals through their career. Mentors should be senior colleagues who are there to guide and support and represent you. There are some great networks too that you can also be part of. And I think there's enormous merit where those networks have both male and female representation, because I feel that integration really is key to gender diversity, and obviously those initiatives being successful and impactful. Gender diversity and the measures that institutions adopt to promote this benefit us all. And diverse workforces are proven to be stronger workforces. They're more collaborative, they thrive on the contribution of different perspectives, and they're also more profitable. It is a win-win for all concerned. As a father of 2 daughters, my hope is that by the time they embark on their career, these conversations are no longer needed. And I'm here to pledge my commitment to help achieving that. So on that note, I thank you for your attending this evening and for listening to what I had to say. And I'll hand back to Patrick to hand over to our next speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. That was great. And I think really important to have your perspective on this as well. I think it's crucial that there are both men and women who are talking about this, and it's not just women. Men have a crucial role, as you said, to play within this debate as well. And I think that sort of you talked about the link. I think in terms of working together, and I think that working together is crucial. But also, I suppose, safe spaces as well. And we do see, and one of the things we're trying to promote tonight is around looking at a gender network as well, and what that looks like. So I think there needs to be that mix between sort of safe spaces, but also working together. And it was really helpful, some of those top tips that you gave to our aspiring lawyers as well to look out for in terms of diversity and inclusion. So thank you so much. And hopefully you can engage more in the panel discussion in a few minutes.